Hello, everyone. Good morning. I wanted to welcome everyone to our Show Me demo. Thanks for all showing up. We're just going to give everyone a few minutes to come in, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, I want to introduce Paul. I'll introduce him again, but this is Paul Chu, our head of customer success from Blameless. Yeah, I just want to see if everyone wants to put in their chat where they're from and where they're coming from and what companies you guys are with. And in the meantime, just so you guys can see all of the chat, make sure to set it to everyone. Sometimes it might set you to an individual. So I just want to make sure everyone has that ready. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. It looks like we have more people rolling in. So I just want to introduce Paul again, head of customer success, and our topic is on reliability insights, metrics, and how-tos. So I'll let you take it from here if you want to introduce yourself, Paul.
So hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our Show Me demo today. Like Crystal was saying, I head up the customer success team here at Blameless, and we do lots of wonderful things like helping answer questions for our customers, helping them get onboarded and deployed in terms of their Blameless instance, making sure that everything's configured so that it's aligned with what their process is and what value they're trying to get out of Blameless. With that being said, for today's Show Me demo, we are going to be focusing on reliability insights, metrics, and how-tos in regards to how we can track a lot of this information within our product. So we'll be going through a few slides, kind of going through some context setting around what reliability is, kind of highlighting some areas that, tactically or I guess strategically you can actually start implementing today if you're not already. And of course, if you have any questions or if you have any comments as well, any opinions in terms of your thoughts around metrics, feel free to throw those into the chat or into the Q&A. I do have those open, and happy to kind of maybe have like a short discussion around kind of what the industry is seeing as kind of valuable and insightful. So here's kind of the agenda: reliability. What's our working definition of reliability? So we're going to be focusing on that. How do we measure it? So how do we know that we're improving, right? In addition to kind of going into and identifying these metrics that are deemed as important and actually, provide indicators of health or whatever the case may be, how do we know that we're improving while tracking those metrics? And then how do we progress and share with others, right? I'll be showing you kind of like an infographic that we put together, kind of walking you through reactive, proactive, and strategic sort of maturity levels. And then kind of tying that back into what types of metrics you might be seeing at those different stages. So reliability. This is a definition that we've kind of put together in one of our recent blogs, The True Meaning of Software Reliability. So we do have a link here that Chris will throw into the chat for everyone to take a look at. But you'll see here that reliability of a service rather is not only availability and performance. It's about your end user and what is important for their journey experience. So I would say it's a very kind of obvious, broadly known kind of statement that we obviously want to focus on the end user experience. But I think once you get into the daily kind of motion around making sure you're checking certain signals or certain monitors to make sure that your application is okay or the health of this service, and that obviously can kind of build up, right? So we really want to focus on what sort of data points and information will actually give us the closest kind of feel of what the end user is experiencing there. So I just want to kind of set the stage in terms of this is what reliability means. Now, a recent kind of publishing kind of came out, State of DevOps 2021, and this is actually from a team at Google, and this is their seventh iteration of this report. But you'll see here that with the Blameless kind of version of reliability, it's not only just us kind of preaching that, it's also these other sort of thought leaders in the space where you'll see there on the first point, reliability. You want to define that in terms of user-facing behavior. And then from there, employing SLIs and SLOs, which are, of course, something that you will eventually get to, if not already today, but essentially using this data to help prioritize work, right? And it could be through the use of error budgets, which is not for kind of today's topic on our webinar today, but also the metrics that you're capturing as well. Automation, you want to reduce as much toil as you can. Preparedness drills, right? Every so often, you want to make sure that the muscle memory is there. Incidents are kind of funny in the sense that if you have a lot of incidents on the outside looking in, it looks bad, but actually from the inside looking out, it's a rather good thing because you know that your team is prepared. They know kind of what to expect when these incidents occur, so you're more coordinated in that effort. Whereas the opposite, it's you have very low number of incidents, and it's still a good indicator, but if it's not due to kind of continuously improving and continuously catching things early on, it's good from the outside looking in, but again, from the inside, that muscle memory might not be there when it comes to what they should expect during these incidents. So if that's the case, you certainly want to have, sort of tabletop exercises on a quarterly basis, trying to simulate as much as you can. I'm sure the AWS outage for those who are affected was not a fun experience, but it definitely gave you a good sense of where you're at in that sense. And then, of course, shifting left on reliability. So making sure that reliability is considered earlier on within the development lifecycle. And this is just a stat here saying that teams who excel at these are 1.4 times more likely to report greater software development performance, and then 1.8 times more likely to report better business outcomes. Again, pretty obvious statements, but just to give you some numbers behind this as well. So the way that Blameless looks at reliability is we look at it as a team sport, right? And that was actually penned by one of our colleagues, our head of strategy, Kurt Anderson, who led up the SRE team at LinkedIn for about 7 years. But we all know kind of the relationship between dev and ops and the movement to DevOps so that there's more collaboration, more alignment there. But with this new or kind of growing kind of SRE function at a lot of organizations, they're kind of sitting in the middle, right? They're kind of teeter-tottering, both sides there, trying to make sure that they're balancing it so that we can deploy new code in a timely fashion, but also making sure that our services are performing at a clip that we're setting the expectation for to our customers. So it can feel a bit chaotic and messy, especially when they're going through this process of trying to find that fine balance. But I think the important thing here is that there is a dedicated function to focus on that piece of the culture, right? Of kind of looking at the development aspect, the operation, and the support aspect. So making sure that there is a dedicated function to kind of help collaborate and bring those together. So it's something that we're aiming to help our customers to in terms of improving reliability across the board. And again, for today, we'll focus on the metrics and reliability insights within Blameless. All right, so this is that chart that I was mentioning earlier, or the infograph. So these are the 3 different, I would say, maturity levels that we see, and this is actually not a concept unique to Blameless. It was actually pulled out of this Google SRE blog, and we can also throw that into the chat here. But really, the main thing is that you're most likely in one of these 3 different buckets. There's actually an additional 4th bucket, but Google actually says that the visionary kind of state is no one has achieved that. So for the most part, we would see most organizations here in the reactive and proactive, or somewhere in between. And essentially, right, with reactive, this could be due to company size, could be due to kind of lack of process, but everything's very reactionary, right? There's no way of forecasting kind of, what sort of issues could arise, right? And what I mean by that is, by leveraging things like SLOs, or being able to understand the health of your service, right? Everything is more of a fire drill, or customers are reporting these issues before you're even notified of it internally. Inconsistent practices. This is certainly something where with a smaller team, it's all about kind of, you'll see heroics, right? So one of the benefits of a smaller team is that in terms of the knowledge that those members have, it's pretty even across the board, or it's easy to scale out in terms of making sure that everyone's close to the same level. When a team gets larger, right, that's really where that approach becomes non-scalable, right? And then the level of expertise across a larger team is not going to be the same that you'd see for smaller teams. So that's where you start to see inconsistencies. You start to see people doing things different ways. And that kind of leads to the maintain through heroics, right? You'll typically have like one or two people who are very familiar with incident management, kind of one of the moving pieces that need to be considered when it comes to running through incidents, and basically moving it to kind of to a resolved state. So that's something that you'll see in the reactive, and then as a result, ultimately feature development is throttled or stopped, right? The focus is now becoming on putting out fires and less on your planned sprints that you have currently going on and upcoming for the next cycle. So when you go into the next kind of level there with proactive, it's a little better, right? You can start to learn from incidents, right? And by learning from those incidents, you're prioritizing a lot of those action items. Maybe SLOs are being introduced as well to help different service owners to understand, these are the indicators, right? This is what's telling me that, once we hit a certain percentage remaining in our error budget, we want to shift our focus from development to reliability. So this is a good way to give you those indicators. New designs assess for risk, right? This is just making sure that you're iterating, periodically in terms of improving the process. And then also the business invests and maintains velocity with reliability. Ultimately, reliability is a business impacting concept, right? If you're not reliable, your customers can't trust your application. There's too much competition out there. So it's hard to kind of keep up with the speed and the competitive landscape as well. And then strategic is certainly an area where you want to get into. That's essentially, you have SLOs in place. Your incident management process is well defined. You're learning. You have a culture around learning from your mistakes, from your past incidents, and then your organization are working cross-functionally as well. If you're not there, don't worry. You're definitely not the only one. That's certainly something that we want to help you get there step by step, and one of those steps being by tracking metrics. So which metrics matter? This is just a list of examples that I've seen from our customer base, and from what I've kind of also gleaned from conversations I've had with prospects and different kind of experts within our customers. But what are some examples of impactful incident metrics? Before I go into that, I think one of the things too is that metrics are certainly important, but it's an outcome, right? It's an outcome resulting from your incident process and how you would implement that at your organization. Right? If you go back to that kind of maturity infograph, there are a lot of assumptions there, right? One of the things, of course, is, are you actually tracking a lot of this information in a more structured, repeatable format? And, by doing so, this is going to allow you then be able to capture a lot of this information. So the results here are then being able to track things like incidents by service within the last 30 days, the total duration of customer impact within the last 30 days, incidents by type stacked by severity. So I'll show you what that looks like. And then from those metrics, how do I ensure that incident metrics are effectively tracked? And I think this is where it gets to more of the culture piece of internal sync meetings. One of the things that we do here at Blameless today, and we kind of preach as well, to help kind of customers in terms of actionable, like things they could do today in terms of improving their overall reliability program, is that we have what's called incident story time. And it's essentially an open meeting to anyone, technical, non-technical, anyone who's interested in joining to, partake in the conversation on incidents. So this is really the opportunity for us to look at the incidents that occurred in the past week and to be able to share with the findings, right? Both from an engineering standpoint, but also from a customer facing standpoint as well. So that, they are also equipped with this knowledge moving forward. So if this issue were to occur, they would know kind of how to start this conversation internally, or to be able to respond to the customer in a more efficient manner as well. So I think this is one of the things that by having the data, the metrics in place, and using the meeting that you would have every week or every 2 weeks in tandem with the data, it allows you to stay focused on kind of understanding and keeping an eye on these different indicators, right, that we're seeing across our various incidents. So like I mentioned, we want to focus more on kind of the reactive and proactive, since that's where a majority of our customers are. But from there, the idea is that we want to iterate, right? I think that's kind of the main outcome out of this entire thing, is that you just want to be iterative across different departments, across different sorts of practices that you have. And that way you're learning along the way, you're starting to go ahead and gather this information so that others can also access this as well. You're kind of getting rid of those bottlenecks. So with that, let me go ahead and jump into the demo here. And I'm going to share an incident view within Blameless first, to give you some context of how and where we're pulling this information from. And then we'll go into the metrics and understand kind of what that looks like from a dashboarding standpoint. Give me 1 second here. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump into this incident. So for those who are new to Blameless, one of the main outcomes that we want to provide in terms of value for our customers is just to make it so that there's a single platform for for users to come in and be able to collaborate, gather important details, and go through that whole process. So in relation, or kind of how this relates to metrics within our Reliability Insights product, is that this is what an incident record within Blameless looks like. So you'll see here, we'll have a timeline, we'll have tasks, we'll have different action items that you're tracking as well. But on the right here, this is where we're going to be mainly focused on. We'll have various timestamps. So we'll go and separate things like start of customer impact, start of incident impact, and then be able to calculate things like duration of customer impact and duration of incident impact. So that way you can separate and differentiate between those two, instead of having a single sort of duration that doesn't incorporate the context of when a end user or customer began feeling the impact of this issue, all the way to the fix has been implemented, but the team internally still wants to keep an eye by monitoring this. A lot of those different details aren't incorporated. So we do separate those two out, so you can go ahead and have a more accurate view of kind of what the actual timing of this is. We'll also track things like different incident types. So, based off of how you deploy Blameless, you can have incident type be one of the categories that you're tracking across, various data sets. And then also tagging. This is going to be very important as well. Blameless helps kind of push the ability to make sure that these tags are incorporated. And these are all customizable too, right? So of course, product could be one that you'd want to track. Maybe service is another one you'd want to track. Region, which customers are impacted, how the actual alert came in. So there's a lot of metadata that's being included here with this incident payload, which, as you start to build out this kind of repeatable process when it comes to dealing with incidents, you're then able to go into the different dashboards here. Oops. So if I go into our Reliability Insights platform, we can now look at one of the dashboards that I created for today, where this is going to show us the items that I had in that slide. So I'll go back here to kind of give you a list of those metrics. So incidents by service, last 30, total duration of incident, customer impact, last 30, and then incidents by type, stacked by severity. And I'll walk through kind of why these sorts of metrics will be important. So if you look at kind of incidents by service during the last 30 days, This, of course, is going to give us a way of understanding, what services are being hit the most, right? And this is a great indicator of understanding, okay, well, if we have a lot of incidents being created for the backend service, like why is that? Why are we seeing more incidents populated here? Oh, it's because we had a higher number of deploys for this one service versus others. And that way you can go ahead and start kind of using these metrics as a way of triggering or kind of kicking start these sorts of conversations. Another example here to give you some more detail is looking at the status of incidents by service as well. So you can see here that for this one service, we have 3 incidents that are resolved, but we have 1 in the identified status. So there's certainly an element here where you can kind of format the view so it's more intuitive, which is kind of what I was aiming to do here. But you can also just have different sorts of data being populated here, since we do capture a lot of different data points throughout that incident record. I'll pause real quick. I do see a question here. So what do we use? We use a Jira ticket as a worm. So I'm guessing the question is, what if you use the Jira ticket as your war room? So that's a great question. So we do have an integration with Jira, and we won't get into that too deeply today. And I'm happy to kind of walk through this in more detail, but essentially we have an integration with Jira. I'll kind of just at a high level show you this, where once you create an incident within Blameless, we'll go ahead and create that Jira ticket for you. So you can go ahead and start tracking your different action items. We'll have this so that these different follow-up actions will relate back to the incident ticket. But this is effectively a process change if you're to look into Blameless, in the sense that instead of tracking this information within Jira, you'll want to track it within Blameless, but still leverage Jira as a way of tracking those work items that will get prioritized in different sprints. You'll be working mainly out of Slack here if you are a Slack customer. So you'll see here that we do have a dedicated Slack channel for those incidents. But that's how we'll start to get people into a single place to collaborate, be able to kind of add information into those channels, which eventually make its way to this timeline. And then, of course, those tags, right? Which will then ultimately populate these dashboards here. Hopefully that answers your question, but let me know if you need any clarification. Moving forward, in terms of the other sorts of metrics here, I have the duration of customer impact. So this is another thing that would be important to your business as well. You want to understand, how much time a customer has been impacted, right? Across maybe the entire customer base, or if you are tagging it by customer for a specific customer. And this can be important just at a high level to understand, why we're seeing so much time impacting this service as an example, or, whatever sort of parameter you'd want to use. And you could essentially use this as a way of calculating, your SLA, your uptime SLA for your customers as well. This is a good segue into our SLO product, which we won't go into today, but if you are curious, feel free to check out our website, and we have some more information there that we'd be happy to provide too. And then what my kind of best practice here that I like to do is I like to have if I have a graph of some sort or a visual, I just like to have like a data table next to it, just so I can see, okay, well, of the 11 hours that we're seeing impacted in the last 30 days, which of these incidents are the ones that are contributing to that 11 hours. So you can see here that, okay, this is the backend service. This incident only took about 0.91 hours. This one, however, took over an hour. This one took 10 hours. Let's go ahead and take a look at this incident and see kind of what happened here. Is this accurate? How can we improve in terms of making sure that we can reduce the amount of time that customers are impacted there? And then the last graph that I have is the incident type by severity. So this is going to be stacked by the severity count of the incidents over different incident types. So you can certainly do this in a way where it's also showing the service. It could be showing the product, the customer, the region. So there's a lot of different ways of kind of breaking this down. But I think to kind of zoom out, right, getting out of the product or the view here, I think metrics are not easy, right? Being able to track metrics that are impactful and provide good indicators of what you're trying to do is not easy, because it certainly is a kind of collaborative effort. There are kind of the industry standards, and I can show you some things like, MTT metrics, which is what we see across the board. Those are valuable, I would say, but I don't think they're kind of one size fits all, right? Maybe for larger organizations, it might be something they want to track, but maybe for smaller organizations, what's more impactful is, which incidents are we seeing more incidents for, or how much time are you spending, right, on these incidents, and then using that as a way of calculating, okay, well, this is obviously not helping kind of what we're planning to develop. So how can we adjust our planning process so that we can incorporate and kind of buffer in a time for incidents within those sprints and have a more realistic kind of expectation there in terms of what can be delivered. So this is one of the things that I love having conversations with customers on, in terms of getting a sense of what they're trying to get to. And sometimes they don't know, right? And you want to start to inform them that, metrics are essentially the things that you're already discussing today, right? You're asking these questions in your meetings of, okay, well, why are we seeing this, right? These are some of the things that you're doing. The only problem is that you're not capturing this data when you do work on these incidents. So metrics are certainly not kind of a one-stop sort of thing where, hey, we have blameless, you now have metrics. No, it's, you want to make sure that the process is built in there to make sure that we are capturing and ensuring that this data is being captured as well. All right, so I'm going to go back into the slides here, and we'll start going into our poll questions. So we have 3 different poll questions for our group today. I'm going to go ahead and read out the question. You'll see a pop-up. Yep, thank you, Crystal. Show up on your side. So the first question is, are you tracking incident metrics today? And go ahead, and we'll just give a 30 seconds or so for people to answer, and I'll go ahead and share the results here. Yep. Thanks, David. Awesome. We have 75% of our attendees tracking incident metrics. Not surprising. And for those who are not, you're not alone. Again, I think it was a good segue. It's definitely something that's difficult, right? So hopefully this was insightful, and happy to have another conversation around this too, to help kind of address some of those gaps for y'all. So our next question is, do you know where they are being tracked? I think this is an important question. We'll give a few seconds here for everyone to answer. And I do see another question in the chat, so I'll answer that here in a second. Interesting results. So we have half of our audience do know where it's being tracked. A small portion doesn't, they don't know. So I would say a majority, it looks like we're about 50-50. So half do know, half don't know. And I think that's definitely something that we also see as well. It's like the metrics can be certainly bottlenecked or kind of contained within a certain group of users. So that's also one of the things that we want to help address by making this sort of visibility available across the board. And then I'll have the last question. Do you share any MTTx metrics with teams outside of engineering, e.g. product executives? While y'all are answering that, I will answer the question here. So Paul, can I easily share my incident reports and or any insights with others in the organization? Yes. So with Blameless, it could be done in a number of different ways. On a per incident basis, we can have that sent out to whoever you want to automatically, or you can have it so it's ad hoc. You just create like a PDF or a markdown export. And then, of course, those dashboards that we highlighted today on our webinar, those you can allow access to others to take a look at as well. Good question. So 80% don't know if we're sharing MTT metrics with teams outside of engineering. That is interesting. There are a lot of kind of thoughts that are running through my head. Maybe it's due to the fact that MTT metrics are not being tracked. So, that's why we don't know. Or maybe because it is being kept only to those applicable groups, I suppose. But this is an area where I think it's kind of a result of maturity, but also as a result of just being able to capture a lot of this information, which they go hand in hand. So interesting. Thank you guys for participating in the poll questions. It's always very enlightening to see kind of what the responses are. So this is our last slide. We have some blogs that we have on our website that we'll have posted here in the chat. Feel free to check that out. You can try Blameless out for free in our sandbox environment. So feel free to check that out as well. It's on our website. We'll also post it here in the chat in terms of the link. And if you are, or of any great people who are looking for their next opportunity, we are also hiring. So feel free to check out our job board to see kind of what opportunities are there. If you are curious, if not, then no worries. But we're growing quickly, and we're always looking to have people join our team. And you see a question here: how long should we baseline for and then start to see improvements? I think the PC answer would be it depends, only because every organization is different. But I would say a good baseline is like 30 days. If you're tracking kind of how you're performing over the last 30 days, you can go ahead and leverage that as kind of a baseline, for lack of a better word. So that's kind of how you can start to leverage the data. But really from there, having that so that you're capturing it is the important piece. Because of course, if you're not capturing, there's no way of tracking that data as well. What are the factors that help to improve reliability over time? Ooh, that's a good question. So there's a lot of different factors to it. I think to keep it simple, it all starts with just making sure that you have a coordinated effort when dealing with incidents. Now, of course, you want to make sure that the product, the code, it's all in, tip-top shape. But of course, the best way to understand what state you're in is through either very extensive QA and user feedback, right? So these things will happen. So I'll say that if you're at a stage where maybe your team is less than 10, the incentive of coordinating incident management may not be as of a high priority. But if you do anticipate of growing fast over the next few months or even year, I would say it's definitely better to get started earlier than later. And I'm sure everyone on this call has been a part of incidents and will always have feedback in terms of making it better. So at least if you get started early, this is a great way to make sure that you have this process in place, you have this muscle memory baked in. And then that way, in terms of the metrics, you're able to then improve and be able to get those different signals to understand where you need to improve as well. Thanks for the questions. Any other questions from the group today?
Well, thanks everyone for coming. I'm going to put in the chat email address where you can reach us if you want to ask questions, and I can forward those over to Paul. It actually looks like we have one more go through. So,
how do you understand that this event is an incident? That is another great question. So ultimately, it depends. I would say from the Blameless perspective, if the event requires someone to do some triaging, I would say go ahead and create an incident within Blameless. But to your question, we are going through an exercise of relabeling different aspects of our platform. So right now we have incident and postmortem. We're looking to have incidents be replaced by maybe something like event, since not every single investigation is necessarily an incident. And then postmortems, that is also kind of an antiquated term. So we're looking to go maybe into like retrospectives. But to your question again, I would say if it requires at least one engineer's time, I would say go ahead and start an incident within Blameless, because that'll start the Slack channel, it'll start the Jira ticket. And at the end of the day, if it is something that's a false positive or not a non-issue, you can easily close it out. But if it does, for any reason, escalate into a higher severity incident, that context is being captured from the very beginning. So that way it kind of helps in terms of transitioning from a single or a couple people to a larger group. And you can you can classify those two within Blameless. So just additional fields if you want to. Thanks for the question. Before I forget, I want to do a plug for our next Show Me. So hopefully you found today's session somewhat useful. But we do have another one coming on January 18th of 2022. So hopefully we'll see you in the new year. And the topic will be covering our PagerDuty integration and just looking at kind of how you can leverage PagerDuty and ways to improve that as well. So feel free to register.
All right. Well, if you guys do have questions, again, that email is in the chat, so feel free to reach out to us there. And thank you so much, Paul, for today. I think this is great to get some more insights on reliability. And yeah, I hope the rest of you guys have a good rest of your week. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.